Good morning, everybody, and welcome to, uh, excuse me, Windows on Waterloo. Today, our guest speaker will be uh, Tavis Hall, the president and CEO of Experience Waterloo. And I would like to say he's the connector to the world because he's just received a great honor. He received Joe Taylor Vision Award, which is given to the tourist leader, Iowa tourist leader who work to achieve and advance their community and the tourism in their city.
So, for those who I haven't met, my name is Tavis Hall. I am the executive director over at Experience Waterloo. I've been here for about 4 years now, a little over 4 years. Uh, we used to be the Waterloo Convention and Visitors Bureau. When I came on, um we made a shift to go from a traditional convention and visitors bureau to a destination marketing organization. And so um, it feels a little jargony, but really the main shift there is that a traditional CVB or convention and visitors bureau is almost solely focused on this long time industry expression of heads and beds. So when you pay that extra little fee, the extra taxes on your hotel stays, typically that goes to a convention and visitors bureau or a destination marketing organization like ours. So we made the shift in 2018 to move from Waterloo Convention and Visitors Bureau and Travel Waterloo into Experience Waterloo. And the reason we did that is that we've got a relatively small staff. We've got we fluctuate between 5 and 6 people. And our jobs are going to be the same regardless. It's going to be to go out to the rest of the state, to neighboring states and beyond, and have conversations about Waterloo. But our goal as an organization is to empower the 68,000 folks who live here to also want to be ambassadors, to want to go out and when you've got a choice between here and somewhere else for a family reunion, we want folks to be proud of bringing their families here. We want folks to feel like if they move out to another community, when it comes time to raise a family, coming back home is a good thing, and start to instill that pride and strengthen those strains of pride. We did some research in our rebrand process, and Waterloo is an incredibly prideful city. Most communities, most people are proud of the places that they live, but in comparison to Des Moines, Dubuque, Iowa City, Cedar Rapids, our numbers were higher. Our numbers, I think sometimes we can get a little distracted by some of the naysayers in the community, but by and large, people here are incredibly passionate about this community. They're incredibly proud of being from here, and so we look at our role as trying to highlight different stories and help good and interesting things that are happening get throughout the community, so that people can have even more ammunition when they're going out and having that conversation about why something should be in Waterloo, or why they're proud to be from Waterloo, or just generally feeling good about their community. So we've been doing that work. Like I said, moving from that very traditional convention and visitors bureau role into this destination marketing role for a few years. And we started to do a strategic plan, a 5-year strategic plan. We started that process in February of 2020. Whoops. So obviously, it felt like a strange time to start a strategic plan once COVID hit, and it has been devastating to the tourism and hospitality industry. But it actually provided us an opportunity. We moved forward with our strategic plan because it provided us with an opportunity to really take a look at what it was that we were doing and say that nothing's sacred at this point, right? We're going to have to change, And change isn't necessarily a bad thing. In fact, it's incredibly helpful. It's an important part of the process. Um, so we can't improve, frankly, unless we change. And and so we moved forward with that process. And so we'll be starting uh, a little bit of a shift um, through this process. You know, we went from Convention and Visitors Bureau to Destination Marketing Organization. We're now shifting over to a concept of DXO, which is the algebraic X. So we will be, our goal is to be the destination's blank organization. At times that's going to be marketing. At times that will be development. At times that will be public health. At times that will be public safety. At times, right? So however we can be of impact and of best use to the community, that will be our goal. And so that ultimately gets us to a point where we can focus beyond the traditional, reaching out to a state association, which will continue to do that work. We'll continue to do the traditional role of a convention and visitors bureau, helping sell some of the really great things, uh, spaces and venues that the city has to offer, the community has to offer. So the convention center, for instance, which is seeing a huge upgrade at the moment. There's actually a really cool, what looks like 6 or 7 story crane right outside my window. So if you see my eyes get distracted, there's a lot of movement across the street right now. Um, it's our ability though to of course do that work, and there's real importance there because it really does mean jobs, but turn that a little bit on its head, and say that having a conversation about public health and the importance of masking also has an impact on the tourist experience, on the visitors experience, and on the tourism and hospitality industry's ability to recover and rebound after the pandemic. We So as we sort of get through our strategic plan, and as the industry has seen a real has taken some real shots. A couple of interesting facts that I think are good for folks to keep in mind. So, tourism in the Cedar Valley pre-pandemic, we were on a really good trajectory. So we had increased about $1 million a year of total economic impact, and that's calculated by Iowa Economic Development Authority and the U.S. Travel Association. They do a joint study every year. We had been, 1 million, starting to get up to 2 million. And then in 2018, we went up 7 million, and we were up to 14 million increase over the previous year in 2019, and then the pandemic hit. So again, we were moving in the right direction, but we were just shy of $400 million of economic impact in the Cedar Valley in 2019 within this industry. That supports 3,000 jobs throughout the Cedar Valley. And so it's an incredibly important segment of our community. We don't always think of tourism and hospitality as a huge driver, but it is real money across the state. Tourism and hospitality is $10 billion of the state's economic impact within the state. COVID hit, and we saw those numbers go down quite a bit. The most telling number to me is that 36% of all jobs lost because of the pandemic were in the hospitality and tourism industry. So of all jobs lost throughout the state of Iowa, and a lot of those are having a lot. You'll see a lot of restaurants, in particular, bars, are having a hard time filling those positions back up, and so we certainly have a workforce issue. There's a multitude of reasons as to what's depressing that market, but it's really there, and but there is also light at the end of the tunnel. So we did some shifts in how we do our grant process every year, which is funded through hotel motel tax, and we saw what we used to do a year, an annual award. Well, we broke that down to a biannual. So every 6 months, we'll do another award cycle. We saw $7 million worth of economic impact um, uh, events that were requesting funds, generating $7 million worth of economic impact, and that's a pretty good year. Most full years we would see somewhere between 9 and 11, maybe $12 million of economic impact that we're applying for hotel motel grants. So to see, that number in 6 months is really encouraging. Those are events like Irish Fest, which will be happening again this year. Pool and dart tournaments. Dart tournament just happened. Pool will happen here towards the end of June. Obviously, RAGBRAI, which I'll jump into a little bit of a presentation here shortly. But there are some really great events that are happening. VGM Heartland Conference is coming back, which we're super excited about. They've called Waterloo home for a long time. They've frankly stuck with it over at the convention center, and to see VGM stay with getting to utilize a facility that's going to be really pretty top notch. We're excited to be able to have that for them and for other meeting planners throughout the community. So we've seen these events starting to come back. It's not going to be without hiccups. These events aren't going to be the exact same as they've always been. For instance, with RAGBRAI, we're planning 2 stages in an effort to encourage and promote social distancing as much as possible. Look, it's going to be registration is full on RAGBRAI. It's going to be looking at about 20,000 riders. So realistically, we recognize we're not going to be able to do that, to do the social distancing without any issue, but we can promote by scheduling and promoting and organizing the event in a way that does allow for some movement. It being outdoors and open air certainly helps. Our transmission rates are really low right now, which is great. Obviously, we are encouraging as many folks as possible to get the vaccination, and I'm hoping everybody on this call is doing so as well. I think we're at 52. I think 52% was what I heard this morning as a county. So it's moving in the right direction, but we've got some work to do. So really quickly, I don't have any pictures I can share. I've got some pictures, but I don't have permission to share them on the convention center. But I did want to touch on some of the work that's going to be done there, because I think it if you've driven by in the last couple of weeks, you'll start to notice some of the outside stuff, and it's really going to be impressive. Style wise, it'll sort of have a bit of a feel as this almost like the sportsplex. There's some paneling that'll be around the exterior of the building. I think probably the most transformative piece on the exterior is there's that box that goes around the top of the building. It's a structure. It's being cut in half, and so what used to be 45-degree angles, I'm really bad at angles. 40, 45, 90, I don't know. Used to be like this, will now be like this. So don't hire me as a contractor. I can help you with tourism and some economic development stuff, but that's about it. Um, that that change in the profile of that building, um, I'll admit, when I saw renderings, or when I first heard about it, I was like, nah. I I used to be a Main Street director. I love historic preservation, and so I wasn't quite on board with getting rid of a piece that I thought was pretty interesting. It shows its age when we don't if we fail to take care of it. But it this new this new piece is pretty awesome. Uh, uh, the plaza, especially along 4th Street, will be completely redone, which is huge. Cedar Valley Pride Fest uh, typically holds their event along 4th Street. I know there's a couple other events that have looked at utilizing 4th Street and the convention center itself, having some outdoor space for them to program and their meeting planners to program is incredibly important. And that really hasn't been a space that folks could easily program or would really want to. I think we can all recognize that the sign that sits out there is in pretty tough shape and has been for quite a while. Um, Everything's going to get a facelift, beyond a facelift, in that building. Exhibition hall now has a lighting and ceiling treatment that's really impressive. Uh, the main lobby used to have a room right in the middle of the lobby, which limited your sight lines, limited crowd flow. That center building was removed, and it is wide open in there. It is it doesn't look like the same building, which is good because that building was rough. It needed some work, but there it really is getting the facelift and the improvement that is needed for a long time. So the ability to add different events, we went back and looked at events that were specific. Uh, there are some programs that meeting planners will post different events that happen, that communities can bid on, and they put size requirements and occupancy requirements and all of that within those bids. So we went back through some of those programs to just to look in 2019 what we could have bid on. And then we took those events and put them into the economic impact calculator, which is developed by Oxford Economics and Destinations International. There's 300 destinations across the globe that utilize that calculator. It's sort of an industry standard, gold standard. 19 events, over $4 million of economic impact. So some of those were a little smaller, but those are just events that were from the height of our occupancy to the height of our nearest competitor. So because of a lack of public investment in that space for so long, the private sector has invested into meeting spaces and event spaces. But the size and scale of the convention center really make it unique for our market, which is why that investment was so important for Waterloo and ultimately the entire Cedar Valley. So I just wanted to make sure that's probably one of our bigger pieces. The other one that I'll pull up a PowerPoint and talk a little bit about some of our RAGBRAI plans, but is the theme park. Lost Island Theme Park, it's made possible by the Birch family and their incredible contributions to Waterloo and really to the region are continuing. So they obviously have invested heavily with the Lost Island Water Park, which last year finally ranks #1 in the country, according to USA Today. So, hey, we were sort of hovering there. We were at like 2 and 3 for a number of years. And in their 20th year, we finally hit #1. So super excited for that news. And then obviously to have $104 million theme park built right across the street. In terms of scale, it'll be larger than Adventureland, and so it is a big park, and a lot of it's already up. Um, um, we've ran that through the economic impact calculator as well. An incredibly conservative number that we initially ran was $32 million of economic impact for that park. And keep in mind, that's for 3 months. That's $6 million worth of food and beverage, $5 million for lodging, $5 million for retail, and $4 million for lodging. And so, quite frankly, a number that I'm a bit more comfortable, slightly more than doubles that. So it's going to be a incredibly important piece of how we move forward as a city and as a community. You know, it's interesting. Waterloo, for a long time, has been a factory town. I think we take some pride in being that, right? That we've got a little grit to us, and that's all right. Now imagine on a factory floor, which is an incredibly diverse place, right? Factory floors, regardless of family backgrounds or racial dynamics, gender, a modern factory has folks from all walks of life on that floor. Now imagine putting a playground in it. It's a little weird, right? It's intriguing, but it makes you think. And so, as we look at already having the top water park in the country, and adding a huge theme park, making sure that we are able to strike this balance and tell an authentic story about ourselves as a community that community can also buy into is it's an incredibly fortunate challenge that we face, and it's one that we're encouraged by here at Experience Waterloo and trying to clear that hurdle every day. So I'm going to try here to share my screen. Give me 1 second to get it. Hold on. So while I'm pulling this up, we presented to council on Monday. So I'm going to share with you all the council presentation that we did because we literally just wrapped it up. You'll notice that we've invested. We're excited about the theme of RAGBRAI. You know, we're in a pretty good spot here. So let me share my screen. Oh, it says that I can't. Says that the host disabled the screen. So I don't know if that's Michelle. You can make me host really quick.
Is the host Michelle? You should be host, Tavis.
Okay. There we go. There we go. Perfect. Can you see that?
Yes.
All right. So July 28th is going to be the day of our overnight stop. Obviously, we were planning to be the overnight town in 2020, and then 2020 hit. So we're excited to host this year. We're the largest town on this year's ride. The next largest town, I believe, is Fort Dodge. So they'll be coming to town from Iowa Falls. the last pass through town will be Janesville, and then they'll come down. I'll show you the route of how they're planning to get through here. So anybody who knows a little bit of, I know Mickey's gonna know this one. We were dreaming when we planned this. Forgive us if it goes astray. We are this year's theme is based around Prince. So our some of our performers have that. The Waterloo experience. I will admit, I'm not clever enough to have picked up on this. The word experience has Prince in it. So we felt like we almost had to do it at that point. And it really is something unique for RAGBRAI. As we look through a lot of different entertainment lineups year over year at RAGBRAI, you start to see the same bands and certainly the same genres and same types of bands. And we recognize that Waterloo is not the same type of town that they've been in the past. And so we're excited to do it a little different and still be true to self, but do it in a way that's welcoming and enjoyable for them. So we'll talk a little bit about routes and safety. Again, the Prince theme continues. If you got the time, baby. If you got the ride, baby, I got the time. I'll admit there's some Prince lyrics that I probably am not going to talk about here on this call, but the ones that I'm quoting here, they're okay. They're all cleared up. So our in routes are, like I said, they're going to be coming from Janesville, and so they'll actually come down Wagner Road, over to Big Rock, and then come all the way down Burton Avenue, over to Congress Street. Then they'll connect over to River Road and make their way into downtown for the festival. One of the things that we really like about this route is that it does showcase some really good pieces of our city. It routes them in efficiently. It's really difficult for larger communities to host RAGBRAI because there's so many people, frankly. The controlling streets as they're getting through town can be a little problematic. So if you typically are on Conger on a Wednesday, I would strongly advise you to take a different route. It's just easier. Same for Burton, same for any of the streets that the ride is on. It is simply easier to avoid riders, but it's important for folks to know if they do have to take those routes or anywhere near those routes, that there's going to be some level of disruption to their typical day. The out route is pretty simple. We're pretty much jumping onto Lafayette Street and riding all the way out to Evansdale. So it's simple to communicate, which is important for folks, as we're talking to local residents about streets to try to find alternative routes. It's good to have these long stretches of road. It's also good for the riders from a safety perspective to have long sight lines so they can see what's coming ahead of them. One general rule that I want to make sure that we stress, part of RAGBRAI, one of the benefits and one of the pieces that they've stressed for a number of years, 49 years now, is that cyclists in the state of Iowa are legally required to ride their bicycle on the street. And so it's important for residents, important for drivers to keep that in mind, not just during RAGBRAI, but throughout the year, that vehicles and riders share the same road. And so just be mindful as you're riding, or you're driving rather, that you're going to see a number of cyclists. We're going to have an official route, but I'll tell you, they're going to be everywhere. Literally, it's crazy how many folks are sort of scattering throughout because they've got places that they're going to stay. Um, they've got things that they want to do while they're in town, and they'll ride their bikes to get there. So um, we've got official routes, but it's important to remember that these folks are going to be throughout the community and to be aware. So on the festival side, the festival is going to be downtown. So 10 years ago, 11 years ago now, in 2010, which is the last time that Waterloo hosted RAGBRAI, all the camping and festivals were out near Lost Island and the casino and Hawkeye Community College. So, that admittedly, that was not the best received overnight stay. Riders want to get a feel for the communities that they're riding through. This is as much an opportunity for those riders to experience different pockets of the state as it is, an exercise. You're riding 68 miles in and 84 miles out. It's definitely an exercise. Don't get me wrong, but it really is an opportunity for folks to engage with fellow Iowans in a really unique way. And so we wanted to make sure that when we host it in Waterloo, that this downtown piece was going to be really the feature of and the hub of activity. So luckily, because of some really smart city planning over decades, hi, Michelle T. Meyer. There's been an infrastructure built here that can facilitate all of these folks and give them a feel for who we are as a community. So like I said before, we'll have two stages, one at the amphitheater and one at the expo grounds. They'll actually enter into the festival grounds via Commercial Street. And that's right in front of Single Speed, right in front of the public library, really sort of in the heart of the west side. We'll have food vendors, we'll have bike vendors, we'll have all sorts of stuff to do. And we'll also have some public infrastructure that's been built, and we'll utilize that. So whether it is the library for information and just sort of a general cool down space, the Sportsplex and Young Arena for restrooms and showers, and the Sportsplex has a swimming pool, which is, after you've been riding in the end of July on a very warm day, 68 miles, a swimming pool sounds pretty good. And so it'll be great to have them in this general vicinity to the festival. Our musical acts are up here. So we've got Diplomats, Stackhouse, and the Purple Experience on our main stage. That's going to start at 3 o'clock and that's going to go through 11 o'clock. And then over at the amphitheater, we'll have a group, Prone to Jones, followed by Kevin Burt. So Grammy, our Grammy guy here in Waterloo, Kevin Burt. So one other interesting piece that I think would be good for this group to hear is that we're actually going to limit the number of food vendors. Typically, a town has 15 to 25 food vendors. We're going to cap ours at 10. And the reason that we're doing that is we want those folks to go to the Basil Pizzas, and I'm pretty sure Doughy Joey's will be open by then, and Screaming Eagle, and Jameson's, and Newton's, and obviously Single Speed and Verve. There are so many, there's almost 20 restaurants in downtown Waterloo. we want those restaurants to do well, especially in this year of recovery, post pandemic. And so, or towards the end of the pandemic. So it's important for us to make sure that we're supporting those businesses as much as possible. And one way for us to do that, in addition to just having it in this general footprint, is to make sure that we're maximizing the ability for those restaurants to do well. We'll be working with Main Street Waterloo as well, to sort of coach those restaurants up a little bit and talk through what the process of, expedited menus, making sure that staffing, that you're situated for some dine-in options, but also some quick takeout. Because sometimes folks just want to, you get to a certain point where you've ridden more miles and you've burned more riding calories than you've taken in, and so you just want a burger at the end of the night. You got to get some sustenance. So campgrounds and accommodations, we're almost done here. Exchange Park, San Susie, and Tibbetts Field are going to be our main campgrounds for general riders. And then we're also going to use Waterworks Field, which is that well field just south of Hoeing Rice Softball Complex. Again, right in that sort of general vicinity as Exchange. And family campground will be over at Lincoln Elementary School. So one of the big pieces on the accommodations, sort of a variation for what we've done in the past and what RAGBRAI has done in the past. Riders used to reach out, and groups used to reach out and say, we'd like to stay at someone's house, and we'd have residents reach out and say, I'd like for people to stay with me. We're not going to deal in that sort of transaction anymore at the direction of state health officials and RAGBRAI. And so instead, we've created a Facebook group where folks can simply go onto the page. They can post that they're interested in housing someone. And those riders that are interested in finding housing can sort of do a self-match. But we aren't going to do it where we're facilitating. It's going to be sort of led by individuals if they're comfortable doing so. And then just last piece, I briefly touched on Facebook, but encourage everybody to just stay connected. We'll continue to post new stuff on a pretty constant basis here, starting in about a week. Facebook.com/Waterloo RAGBRAI. And then also on our website, there will be some forms. For instance, if you've got a church group that wants to do a spaghetti dinner, it's pretty standard with RAGBRAI overnight towns. You can go in and you can register that group or that opportunity for the spaghetti dinner or cookout or whatever it is. You can register that at experiencewaterloo.com/RAGBRAI. And that way we can help communicate what all is happening outside of the festival, as opposed to having to, I don't know how those folks would do it. RAGBRAI used to have these large tabloids, 16 to 30 page sort of newspaper print. We're really trying to move away from that, trying to be as environmentally conscious with this as well, and printing 15,000 paper tabloids that were just being discarded at the end of the day. Really didn't get us to any sort of efficiency. So we will be doing some all calls for volunteers. So that's going to start on May 15th. We're going to need about 350 shifts. That number might tick up a little bit. 350 is probably our low number, but we'll need some the day before on the 27th. Obviously on the day of the 28th, and then following on the 29th, making sure folks get out of town and making sure that we get everything picked back up. So we'll be doing. We've got some good sort of swag coming out. So some t-shirts. It's encouraging folks to sort of show their pride and excitement about this really cool opportunity. And then if folks are involved in organizations or companies that have interest in, um, if folks have interest in sponsoring or doing in-kind contributions, we're absolutely still available. So just shoot me an email and we'll try to connect. But I mentioned a couple times throughout different events, economic impacts. RAGBRAI's economic impact for a one-day event is in Waterloo, $2.6 million. That's a good day. For frame of reference, our largest festivals, even a couple day festivals, are about 1 to 1.5 million, and so to have a single day event at 2.6 means there's a lot of people. There might be an adult beverage or two consumed. I'm not sure. And a lot of food and a lot of just economic activity, which is great as we get back to rebound. So that's as fast as I can do all of that. I'm sure I skipped something, so I apologize if I left anybody out. But it sounds like we've got a little bit of time for some questions too.
Yes. If you don't mind, I'll start out with some, but I want to reflect back to the beginning when you talked about your strategic plan. What are some of the great challenges that you see Waterloo facing in order to accomplish the plan that you guys have developed?
Sure. One of the things is there are times where we leave. There are opportunities that get presented. For instance, some of the recovery money, the federal dollars, that if we don't have plans in place, we're not positioned to take advantage of those opportunities. And sometimes creating a plan doesn't mean that we have the end goal already identified and the means already identified. It just means that we've articulated a priority and a path to that priority, and then we just got to find the ways to pay for it. A perfect example of that is in Coralville, Iowa River Landing, which a lot of folks are familiar with. That it is booming down there. That was a plan that was developed 20 years ago that sat dusty for 12 years. It just sat there on a in a binder, and when there were some federal dollars because of flooding, all of a sudden there was a financial ability to enact that plan. So I think we as a community have to start to invest in long-term development plans. Destination plans in particular is one that we're excited about embarking on, and making sure that we've got buy-in, not just from tourism and hospitality segments on that destination plan, but the community at large, so that folks feel empowered as if these new and cool things that are happening are driven not just by a handful, but by the collective. And I think if we do that, if we do this in a smart way, we can get there. The city is also doing. I'll do a quick plug. The city's doing Spark events as a part of their visioning sessions, and so on the city's Facebook and website, you can find some clicks to submit these Spark ideas, which is just, hey, what are some cool ideas that Waterloo should be thinking about? And it's a way for folks to have input into the direction of the city, and I think that's incredibly important. But it takes time, it takes money, it takes energy to create those plans, and sometimes it just takes faith and a little bit of hope that at some point an opportunity is going to present itself and those plans are going to be ready, because other communities are doing that, and if we aren't doing it, we're going to be that much further. We're further behind when those opportunities do present themselves and we don't have a plan to spend those dollars.
My next question is jumping forward to RAGBRAI. Uh, can you go into any detail on how you're planning to include the total Waterloo community to engage in RAGBRAI?
Yeah. Yeah. So, we've got a good, some good media sponsors, NRG and KWWL. Um, so we'll continue uh, sort of getting the word out, but also engaging folks with groups and clubs and organizations that they're a part of, um, making sure that this Waterloo is a unique community, especially by Iowa standards, and so we want to make sure that when folks get here, uh, it feels like Waterloo, and so that means reaching out to church groups um, in every corner of the city, reaching out to radio stations and um, through social media outlets um, with really intentional action to ensure that our volunteer force and to ensure that our uh, what we're bringing to the table in terms of welcoming these folks is representative of the community. I think one of the really we've not started. We've had some conversations with the youth art team about how can we engage with them and how can we have them be a part of this ride. Not everybody has that, and it's a really cool opportunity for those kids to engage with a whole bunch of folks from across a whole bunch of places. We're also working with Waterloo Community Schools and the Career Center and potential internship opportunities for some of those kids to get engaged, maybe in a way that's different than what we've come to expect high school interns. Going to give them some responsibility, give them some room to run, room to be creative. I think a lot of times we box them in too tight, and young folks they don't have all the scars that uh, you know some more seasoned folks have, right? And so the world is their oyster, and they're ready to take it on. And I think it's good to have that energy in an event. So we're excited about the partnership with the Career Center there.
Excellent. And my last question before I open it up to our community is beyond RAGBRAI, what are some of the events or activities that you're looking at so we can be aware of what's coming down the pipeline?
Cool. So we are a lot of our attention is going to be here in the sort of downtown festival area. Uh, but we'll also have shuttle service, out to Crossroads, out to Lost Island, most likely to the Isle and some of the hotels. We want folks to engage with the community as much as possible. We'll be promoting uh, not just within the festival grounds, but really throughout all of downtown and any business throughout the community that's putting on. Let's say they got live music. Um, we can help promote that. We've got to be smart about how we push that out to folks. Um, RAGBRAI has some pretty powerful tools when it comes to engaging with their writers, um, whether it's some push notifications to their phones, which they've all registered for the ride using, or just their social channels. There's pretty consistent traffic on those channels during the ride. Um, and so utilizing that and making sure that we're articulating as folks have an event, make sure you get that on that experiencewaterloo.com/RAGBRAI page. Um, get that on there so that we can help promote and spread the word that when riders are here, there's some cool stuff happening.
Yeah. One of the statement or question, it should be about volunteers. Somebody put that on the chat and about where they park, and they said they're going to be designated spots. But how can we as a community get this out to more of our communities about the need for volunteering during the RAGBRAI those 3 days, the 27th, 8th, and 9th. Is he frozen? Tavis, I think you're frozen. Okay. We're gonna, I don't know if he's gonna be unfrozen. You know, the best laid plans of mice and men go awry. So I'm not sure if he's frozen on everybody else's, but he's frozen on mine. Is there any other questions for Tavis?
This is Kara with Saddles and Smokestacks. I have one, if he can answer it. And it may not be in his bailiwick, but I was just kind of wondering about what you had said a minute ago, Mickey, about what are the plans past RAGBRAI and things going forward. And he was talking about the Lost Island Adventure Park. And I think there's a lot going on that part of town, but we still have this huge property of former crossroads that there's nothing at, or very little at. And I'm just wondering if there's any future plans that what Experience Waterloo is involved in, as far as, you know, shopping experiences and kind of destination shopping places to go. I think that's one thing that a lot of people look for, and there really isn't a lot of that around this area. So again, I don't know if this falls within Experience Waterloo's bailiwick, but I'm curious to know what the future plans might be for that.
Yeah.
Or if anybody else can address that.
Yeah. I know very little, but I do know there's plans to bring Crossroads back to this full livelihood of all the stores being filled. And I think that's an ongoing process right now. And I know there's some new stores popping up right now. In fact, one of my mentees, excuse me, he just opened up his Q's Fashion Clothing, just opened up. But what you'll see in the next 8 months, that most of the stores, from my understanding, will be occupied. But I don't know if that's not going to be in time for RAGBRAI, but there will be some. But excellent question. And if you
sorry about that.
Oh, great.
I'm sort of back on. I'm on my phone. Our office Wi-Fi went down, of course. So, you know, we got MediaCom here too, guys.
Okay. Okay. There was a question about using shopping. People come into this area during RAGBRAI, they want to shop. And we talked about the future past RAGBRAI. And the question was about Crossroads. Can you give us any updates on that?
Yeah, so we'll have shuttle service out towards that area. You know, obviously we've got a number of hotels. We have 1,500 hotels in Waterloo. About 2/3 of them are located in the Crossroads area. So we'll have shuttle service to downtown and to Crossroads. Downtown's going to serve as sort of our shuttle hub. So if you're staying at Exchange Park, the shuttle will bring you downtown, and then you can go from downtown to a handful of different locations on our shuttle service. And so Crossroads, the shopping mall, Hy-Vee, all those sorts of
do you know if there's
traditional spaces are going to be available.
Do you know if there's going to be more shopping stores at Crossroads?
I would love to say yes. I would love to say yes. I think it's something that we've got to, that to me, that frankly gets to that destination planning of how can we help generate base level, an increased base level of traffic into that area that will justify some of these national chains to move in to capitalize on the anywhere between $5 and $11 million of retail that's going to happen because of the theme park. That theme park provides an excellent opportunity to recruit some potential retailers and national chains, but it's going to be really difficult, frankly, to convince them to do so off of 3 months. It's just not a supportive model. So we've got to figure out how to generate additional traffic to that space. There are ways to do it. The mall is a very large, is a very large area with a lot of developable lots. And so I think it's working with the city, creating that destination plan, hopefully finding either public options or public-private options to further develop that space. But there are some ways to do it, but it's going to take some real community conversations. It's not going to be, there's no easy fix on that one. That one, it didn't get to the spot where it's at now on its own, and it's not going to get solved on its own either, unfortunately.
Okay. And Tavis, I would like to say thank you, but to let you know your introduction, I did talk about your award that you just received, the Joe Taylor Visionary Award.
Thank you.
And I want to say thank you to all of our community for logging on today. And I want to say thank you for being our presenter. Sorry for the computer glitches. And hopefully we won't have that next month. But once again, as always, good to talk to you, good to hear from you. And thank you for the updates. And on that note, from the Windows on Waterloo, we thank everybody and wish everybody a great day. Take care.